All right. So it says in there that you need to find how many batches of each type. That's what we're trying to find, how many batches of each type. And then the second question, what is the maximum profit? If you look at the very bottom, there's 2 answer blanks. So we are going to answer 2 different things. But the first thing that we need to find is how many batches of each type. That's your variables. The number of batches of each type. Those are your variables. So we might call our first variable X, and that would be the number of batches of the house mix. And we'll call Y the number of batches of the fancy mix. Defining your variable is going to help you not get lost in your work, because we're going to fill up this entire page with one question. You could get lost in your work. Have those variables defined so you can refer back to them. I was helping somebody with this problem, like with their homework during XH, and the problem is they had the wrong variables defined, and then they couldn't figure out the problem. So once you figure out the right variables, it helps you a lot. There is one more variable that I'm going to include. There's not a blank for it, so I'll just put it off to the side. But it's for the second question, what is the maximum profit? So I'm just going to call P profit in dollars. So I'm going to call P the profit. Because that is another thing I will be finding. The objective function is for profit in this case. It's going to be how do I find my profit? So when you look through the question, you're looking for things that have to do with profit. So we look through the question, is there anything up there that has to do with profit? Do you see anything that has to do with making money?
Yeah.
$50 per batch of house mix and $60 per batch of fancy mix. So I heard you say it. You'll be doing 50 times the number of house mix batches plus 60 times the number of fancy mix batches. That's how you would find your profit.
We gotta kind of talk about the maximum. Like, there's no like constraint on like how much money that state question.
Because we're doing simple.
So we're not gonna be able to like.
Well, how much you're going to actually spend? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, because like the question makes it seems like your profit. Like,
I understand, but you had to at some point pay for these pounds of peanuts, and you have to pay for production. So in this question, they've already figured out with all of those different things happening, you're making $50 per batch of house. Okay, there are way more things to consider, but we're doing this very simplified.
that's like when they ask the maximum profit, just leave that for
We'll get there. Okay, let's just see about setting up. The hardest part, I promise, is setting it up. I promise that's the hardest part. Once you get it set up, you're good to go. Hopefully. Okay, so from here, now we've got some constraints. So there's some things that our variables can't equal, or have to be bigger than, or have to be smaller than. For example, X is the number of batches of house mix. Can I have -6 batches of house mix? No. So X has to be greater than or equal to 0, because I have to have at least 0. Can't have negative. And same thing with Y. That has to be greater than or equal to 0. We do have some more constraints, and this is a little bit trickier to figure out. I didn't move this over, second right. You could probably write on the other side if you have room. There is another constraint because we only have 200 pounds of peanuts. That's all we have, is 200 pounds. So we can't use 205 pounds of peanuts. We don't have it. So our peanuts have a constraint. What also has a constraint? our raisins do too, because we only have like a certain 160, I think it is. So I'm looking in my description for totals, and I have a total of 200 pounds of peanuts. And I have a total of 160 pounds of raisins. So I know that I can use at most 200 pounds. So I'm going to be using less than or equal to 200. And since I'm only talking about peanuts, this equation only involves numbers that have to do with peanuts. Let's look in the question up here. Let's make it a different color. I'm trying to color code as good as I can. Here's the word peanuts. And here's the word peanuts, besides 200. Those are the numbers that have to do with peanuts. So we've got 20 pounds and 10 pounds. 20 pounds of which type? 20x and 10y makes our 200 pounds of peanuts. So that's how you're going to set this equation up. You're just looking at the peanuts. And then for the raisins, same thing. We're just going to look for raisins up here. Where we got raisins? Here's raisins, here's raisins, here's raisins. So we have a total of 160. To get that 160, you take 10 from the x's and 20 from the y's. All right, we got through the hardest part. Now we're going to graph it. Okay. I've kind of given you a graph that really, I don't know how to say it, but x is greater than 0 and y is greater than 0. The first two constraints I've kind of done for you. See what I did with the graph? I only gave you the first quadrant, because x and y can't be anything but positive numbers. So those first two constraints are actually done for you. We just need to graph these now. So this one right here, how do I graph it? This is homework. Can you answer the question?
Yeah. How do you grab it? Wait. To what? I don't know. Take y by itself. Or one of the variables by themselves.
How do we do that?
Can't do
Okay, what should I do? What did you do in your homework? This is ax plus by equals c, so what do I do? C over a. So you're finding the x-intercept. Is that what you're doing? Yeah. So the x-intercept is when y is 0. You do c over a. So 10, right? 10. Y-intercept, x is 0. 20. Can I count by ones on my graph? Why not? Why not? So you didn't count. There's 20. What is my x-axis? This is the batches of house. And this is, I run out of space because I'm trying to do it on here, but the batches of fancy. So we've got 0, 10, or 10, 0, I mean. straight edge, use your straight edge, connect it. How do I know which side to shade? Well, it doesn't say y equals, so you can't just go like less than equal to decide if it's above or below it.
0.
You can test 0, 0. So if I put in 0, 0, is that true? Yeah. So it will be shaded this way. Eventually I'll get there. You see how what we did yesterday is now being used again. All right, the other equation, same stuff. Let's graph it. Let's do our x-intercept. X-intercept, 16. Y-intercept, 8. Yep.
Were you getting 0 to 8? Like, were you getting 8 to 16?
I'm plugging in 0 for y,
I got you.
and then plugging in 0 for x to find my x and y intercepts.
Got you.
I think that's the most efficient way of graphing when it's in standard form. And you can certainly change the form to y equals mx to c and graph it that way, but that would take longer. All right, and then we figure out which side to shade. We test to point, test 0, 0. We get 0 less than or equal to 160, so that does shade the 0, 0. So we shade down. And then you got to figure out where they overlap. So we've got a quadrilateral with 4 vertices. And that's the next thing that it's asking for, is the vertices. When you do the vertices, I'm going to use those vertices and plug them into equations, so you may not want to take up the entire blank with your vertices, sorry, if you already did. I mean, there's plenty of space to do it over here if you already did. So the vertices, the first one, 0, 0. Second one, 0, 8. Okay. Doesn't really matter the order. Third one, 10, 0. Fourth one, I'm not sure. Okay, so the fourth one is the intersection between my green and my purple lines. So I'm going to do that using algebra, not just looking at the graph, but I'm going to do that algebraically to make sure I know the exact place where these two graphs cross. So it's between my purple and my green lines. So 20x plus 10y, and you can just do equals when you're finding the intersection. My green one is 10x plus 20y is 160. And you can do that by substitution or elimination. I think I'm going to do elimination. Which one should I change? Top by -2? Sure. It doesn't really matter. You pick one and you go with it. I'll multiply the top by -2. That's going to give me -40x minus 20y equals -400. So I get -30x equal -240. So x equals
80.
8. Yeah.
So
So then plug in 8 into one of these questions. I'll just plug it into the green one. Why not? Put 8 right here. So I get 20y is 80, so y is 4. That was really tiny, I'm sorry. But it's the stuff we've been doing for days in here. So my last ordered pair is the 0.84. Does that make sense with my graph that is at 8.4? So when I first did this, I didn't use a graph because it wasn't provided. I added the graph in from the notes that I had. And I was just off a little bit. It crossed and it didn't even look like it was anywhere close to 8.4. It's really important that you do this as accurate as possible. So we've got 8.4. Now, our question is, which vertices should we use? Which combination of batches should we use that's going to give us the most profit? So now we're going to use that profit equation. Remember we wrote it up there? We're going to use that profit equation, which was, I don't remember, 10x plus 15y? Is that wrong? Oh, 50x. I don't remember. 50 times x plus 60 times y. So 0, 0 is going to give us 0 profit. If we make 0 batches of each kind, we're going to not make any money, right? That would not be what we want to pick. How about 50 times 0 plus 60 times 8? $480? That's good. 50 times 10 plus 60 times 0. $500, that's better. 50 times 8 plus 60 times 4. 400 plus 240. $640. So what should we do? I'm going to make 8 batches of house and 4 batches of fancy. The max profit of $640. Okay. If you have no questions, turn to the next page, read the next question, start figuring your variables out. If you got questions, ask. So we used only peanuts. Okay. Because it was a total of 200 pounds of peanuts. We only looked here and said there's 10 pounds of peanuts. And 20 pounds of peanuts. Oh, 20. So 20. So we separated by category of something. All right. You all know what to do? You got your variables written down? You read the problem yet? It's not always so obvious. Well, somewhere where someone would know that, but it's not always so obvious that it is like that. So we don't do all these things, and it works out like that. Not every single question I need to do. I think the hardest part though is just setting it up. Okay, so you should have 3 variables. You should have 3 variables. You should have 3 variables. What don't we know? What do we need to find? It says to find something. How many multiple choice? How many short answer? So we just call X the number of multiple choice and Y the number of short answer. But there's a third variable. What's the highest score?
We can make it Z.
Call it whatever you want. What are you going to call it?
Say Z.
Z for what? Oh, okay.
No, the Steelers are terrible.
Okay. You could do H or highest score. You could do capital Z because you want to do X, Y, Z. It doesn't matter. Also, I know I did this in the homework. I did not have to choose X or Y. I could have chosen M and little s if I wanted to. But I didn't want to because I didn't want to deal with an S in an equation because it looks like a 5. But you can choose whatever letters you want. All right, so we got our variables. What's next? The objective function, so our score. How are we going to get the highest score? So the score has to do with points. So you look up here, what up here, and color code. Highest score has to do with points. What up here has to do with points?
Short answer.
15 points and 10 points. Those have to do with the points. So our objective function, is that what it's called? S equals 10x plus 15y. Our score is equal 10 times the number of multiple choice plus 15 times the number of short answer. All right, what's next? Constraints. So we're looking for totals up here. What's a total up here?
60 minutes.
So 60 minutes has to do with 6 minutes and 3 minutes. All of that goes together. It's time. They all go together in the same equation. So we're going to have one constraint, and it says less than or equal to 60 minutes, right? Right? So what's my constraint?
16 total questions.
What's the x? 3x plus 6y. So that's 3 minutes and 6 minutes and 60 minutes. It's like all the way through the same unit. So what's another total that we have up in here?
X plus Y.
Okay, I was just asking for the total, but you guys are overachieving. Questions, right? And all we know about questions is that that's how many total you have. But we do know X is the number of multiple choice and Y is the number of short answer. So we just do X plus Y less than or equal to 16. So that's questions. Are there other constraints? Can you answer negative questions? So you know that X and Y both have to be greater than or equal to 0 because you cannot have negative questions. Is that all my constraints? Okay, so now what do we do? Graphic. Well, I've already given you the X is greater than 0, Y is greater than 0 by chopping off 3/4 of the graph. So you have to graph the other two equations. How are we going to graph 3x plus 6y less than or equal to 60? X and Y intercepts. Just do it over here. What's the X intercept? 20. Y intercept.
0.
Am I going to have to renumber the graph, or can I just go by ones? I've given you 20 spots. If you're not sure, look at the second question too. Are we gonna have any numbers above 20 in the second question? So x-intercept is at 20, the y-intercept is at 10. Where's it gonna shade? 0, 0 work? Yep, so it will be down. The second equation, x plus y is 16. What's my x-intercept? What's my y-intercept? Okay. And then check 0, 0. Can we shade 0, 0? Yes. So then from there, you know that you have a quadrilateral region. Then we're going to figure out our vertices. And one of those vertices is the answer. So the first one, 0, 0. Is that one going to give you the highest score if you answer nothing? Okay, so I don't even need to plug that one in. It's not going to happen. Second one, what do we got? 0, 10. So I'll use my score question, or my score equation, and that would be 10 times 0 plus 15 times 10. Give me a score of 150. What's another vertex? 16, 0. So I'll do 10 times 16 plus 15 times 0. Gives me a score of 160. All right, the better one so far. Nope. Nope, this third or fourth one, that's going to be where the green and the blue lines intersect. So if you can't tell, we need to use elimination or substitution with these two equations. I'll just do it on a side paper. You guys probably have a little bit more space than I do. 3x plus 6y is 60, and x plus y is 16. What should we eliminate? X's multiplied by -3. Okay, so I do my systems and I get y is 4. I'm going to plug that into the green one. If y is 4, then x is. If y is 4, then x has to be 12. So that's my other ordered pair, 12, 4. Did I just do that backwards? No. Okay. So 120 plus 60, get a score of 180. So how many questions should we ask or answer, and what's our max score? So multiple choice and 4 short answer. for a max score of 180 points. If you already have that written down, you ready to go on, read the next one, figure out your variables, try to figure out your constraints. Moped. Number of mopeds. X does not equal moped. The number of mopeds. We're trying to turn a profit. So that'll be my third one. Looking for constraints. But greater than 10. Oh no, you got the right numbers, but the way you written it doesn't make sense. You're saying X is less than 60, but it doesn't be time greater than 10. Oh, so it's B. All right, do you have X is greater than 0 or Y is greater than 0? Actually, it's more, what's the word? It's not just X is greater than 0, Y is greater than 0 this time. Have you read it? You gotta do it on your own. You just have another page. You have not just X. You have not another page.
What would be, if X is greater than 10,
What's 60?
I had that.
Okay, that's saying that we could produce a total of 60. Okay. We're gonna write it anyway. All right, middle. My constraints. Up here, I'm looking at mopeds. And it says we need to produce at least 10 mopeds. I guess they figured out that if they produce less than 10 mopeds, they're not going to make any money. So they got to make at least 10 mopeds. But it also says at most 60 mopeds. So the mopeds have to be in between 10 to 60. More than 10, less than 60, maybe equal to. Yeah.
So then X plus Y, asking later here, less than or equal to 160, right?
Yeah, but I didn't write that one down yet, but yeah. I'm just talking about the mopeds being between 10, that's supposed to be 10, and 60. The mopeds themselves have to be between 10 and 60. At least 10, at most 60. Are there any constraints about the number of bicycles by themselves?
No.
Yes.
120 bicycles.
Uh-huh.
You're right.
At most, 120 bicycles. That's all they could make of the bicycles per month. Maybe their machines can't go faster, and that's the most that they can make. So our bicycles, they have to be bigger than 0 or equal to. It has to be less than or equal to 120. And then they can make a total of 160 mopeds or bicycles combined. So if you add together X plus Y, we can only get a total of 160. Oh, I forgot to write my profit equation. I'll go back and do that though. Are there any other constraints? I think that's all the constraints. Yep. And then our profit equation. How do we make a profit? What up here has to do with money? 134 x plus 20. That's all the money related numbers up there. All right, so start graphing. I guess graph the third one first. Is that okay? Okay, third one. Oh. How am I going to graph this?
The tens.
Well, what am I going to do to graph it? Find my x-intercept. What's my x-intercept? 160. What's my y-intercept? 160. So you count by tens? Is that what you said? Counting by tens, like 10, 20, 30. If you're going to change the scale, please, you don't have to write every single number, but at least say, okay, this is 20, this is 40, I'm counting by tens. You don't have to label them all. I counted by 10. No, I totally counted by 20. I don't know what I was doing. I meant to count by 10. I even said it, and then I didn't do what I said. All right, let me try that again. I thought it looked really small. All right, so there's the first one. We plug in 0, 0, and it gets shaded below. All right, a different equation. How about x has to be between 10 and 60? X has to be between 10 and 60. So here's where x is 10. Here's where x is 60. Has to be in, whoops, has to be in between those two. And between 10 and 60, right? And then y has to be between 0 and 120. So here's 120. So I have a pentagon region. I've got 5 vertices. I need to figure out those 5 vertices. I need to test the 5 vertices from the profit function to see what gives me the most profit. The first vertice 0, nope, 10, 0. My first vertex is 10, 0. So I plug that into the profit function, and I get $1,340. So making 10 mopeds, that's the profit I'm going to get. There's also 60, 0. Pretty sure that if I make more mopeds, but the same amount of bicycles, I'm going to make more money, right? So I probably didn't even need to find that first one. That's 60 times 134. I have it. I have it somewhere.
8,040.
Okay, so that's the money for 60. Another order pair will be 10, 120. So if we have 10 mopeds plus 120 bicycles, we'll get $3,740. That's not the most. And then the other two are ones that aren't so obvious where we might have to use systems to find. So I've color-coded mine. If we look at the purple equation and the blue equation, I'll just count this, I'll just say that this is vertex number 4. Look at the purple and the blue. The purple is definitely what number? That's y equals 120. So y is 120 at this ordered pair. I just have to plug it into the blue one. So I plug it into the blue one. So x is 40, right? So 40, 120. And we'll do the, put in the profit thing in just a second. What about the other one? How about 5? That's on the green one, so x is definitely 60. And we just have to plug it into this x plus y equals 160. So y would be what? 100? So we do 134 times 40. I don't know what that is. Probably on my paper. 2,400. Do you know what it is?
5,360.
That is, or the total?
Oh, that is, the total is 7,360.
That's what I had on my paper. It's just the total. Oh no, I had it. 7,760. So far, not winning. So far, 60 is winning. Okay, last one. Ooh, but that one's got to be better than this one. Why? Look at those orders pairs. Right, that one's going to be 8,040 plus 100 times 20, 2,000. So that is the winner. You should make 60 mopeds, 100 bicycles for a profit of $10,040. So do you have to plug in every single one? Probably not. But sometimes they're not as obvious, and you can plug in at least some of them to figure out that you have the highest profit. This won't take much time, will it? Your worksheet is attached, and there's only 3 questions. Come see me if you get stuck. Right? Come see me if you get stuck. Stage if you get stuck, right? I will post this video if you need to go on and watch any of it. It is worksheet 7.5 from your packet.
Should we still put it on?
We'll just do it on Friday.